Hey friends, welcome to Leading from Wholeness. I'm Audrey Shelby, a wife, mother, leader, and child of God. I'm here to let you know that your call to leadership was not a mistake. Fear and anxiety will no longer run your show. You have been called by God to lead right where you are. We'll talk about leading with authenticity and power, overcoming barriers that keep us stuck and get in the way of us being effective leaders and truly rising to the call that God has for us. With tactical strategies like prayer, we're going to grow closer to God in these busy times. You can enjoy leading from a place of freedom and purpose. So grab your journal and your hot chocolate and let's go. Welcome back to the Leading from Wholeness podcast. I'm your host, Audrey Shelby. I am so excited about my guest today. I'm going to just introduce her briefly, but I really she's been a blessing that I didn't expect. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Kimberly Miller. She is joining us today. So she has 25 years of executive leadership in both the government and nonprofit space. She has managed government healthcare systems as well as higher education. And so I'm going to turn it over to her, but let me tell you a little story about how we met. So I'm going through this executive leadership program at UCLA probably about 2 years ago, and all these fabulous women, just wonderful women that I was blessed to meet. And so one day, Kim calls me and she was like, "Hey, sis, like I feel like we have a connection, right?" And from there, it just blossomed and bloomed, right? So the program has been over, but God has allowed us to stay in contact and build a friendship. And so I love her and I just know what she is going to give today. I think is going to be changing your mindsets around leadership, changing your mindsets around how you bring yourself to God and how you bring God into every aspect of your lives, not just the pieces that we want to give to Him, but really about real surrender. So I'm excited. I'm excited. Okay. So Kim, I gave you a brief introduction, right? Please share more about your background.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, sis. I love you,
Of
and
course.
I'm I'm so grateful for you. I believe in divine connections, and the fact that you and I were in the same cohort and had an opportunity to connect, and our relationship, as you mentioned, has continued to blossom, has truly been a blessing in my life, and that's true sisterhood. And for anyone that has been praying for a friend, God answers prayer, and I have a new friend and sister because God connected us. So, a little bit about myself. As you've already mentioned, Audrey, thank you so much. Yes, I have a little bit over 25 years of executive leadership experience. I still look good. I don't care what y'all think. I
Oh,
still
absolutely.
look good.
Absolutely, girl.
After 25 years, they've taken a little bit of time off of my life, but I'm still holding it together. And I've worked in a variety of sectors, local government, nonprofit, private sector, municipalities, and healthcare. And my most recent venture is in higher education. And Audrey and I met in regards to a higher education women's leadership conference. And it's a transition for me. It's a transition into something different. And I am learning more about myself, and we'll talk a little bit more about that transition later on. I also hold a doctorate degree in education and organizational leadership. That's my passion, as well as a master's in business administration and a bachelor's of science degree in business management. I'm the mother of two daughters. I like to refer to them as thing one and thing two, but Maggie is 22 and Carly is 19, and they are my heart. Those are my girls. And I have been growing up with them and maturing with them since they've come into my life. I provide a lot of service in my community through my church and my other fellowships that I belong to. And many women may be able to relate to this. I am also perimenopausal, which changes everything. It's changing. It's changing everything in regards to how I move. So I'm embracing this season in my life, but it also requires an immense amount of grace for myself that I have to elicit because it's a lot of new things happening that I may not always understand, but God is there to help me navigate through it.
I love it. I love it. And it's so funny how, like you talked about it, right? You talked about a few different life transitions just in your introduction of yourself. And
Hmm.
navigating change can be really hard, right? Whether it's in our professional lives or in our personal lives. And I think particularly right now, just the state that we're in There's a lot of financial crisis. There's instability. Our economy is unstable. There are a lot of things that I think we have held dear, and things are being shaken up, right? Like our lives are being shaken up, our systems are being shaken up. How do you keep like thinking about that, right? From a workplace standpoint, let's focus on that for now. How do you keep your team and your employees encouraged in such volatile times?
That's a great question. And I had to really think about your question. Um, I think one of the things that came to mind for me was that it's really difficult to help motivate or inspire others if you don't yourself feel connected to God, if you are struggling with your own spirituality and what God has done for you. And for me, that was really relevant. I've had a journey over these last, I'm 51, I'll be 52 in July. And over my 51 years, I've experienced a lot of different types of transition, and I refer to them, those transitions as history, but also context, right? Demonstration of God's love, his power in my life, his protection, provision, all of those types of things, but also how I showed up in those situations when things were occurring that were either in my control or outside of my control. And my attitude and my willingness to participate in my own recovery from whatever the adversity is or situation was paramount. And so for me, I think that you need to be able to have a conscious contact with God. I say the Serenity Prayer daily, and for those who may not know it, it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me, that prayer has helped on so many occasions. Sometimes you just don't have the words to really express how you're feeling, but you're confused, you're hurt, maybe you're lonely, you're disappointed, angry, and you're just trying to navigate uncharted territory. And you talked about uncertainty, terms that are being used right now are unprecedented. Like everything is unprecedented. And it can be kind of scary, right? If you're looking at everything that is around you and you're trying to figure out how to navigate these very tumultuous times. We have war, we still have famine in the world that we live in today. You would think a lot of these issues would have been eradicated, uh, but they're not. They're still
Hmm.
here. And as humans, we will always continue to have difficulty in around us. But it's also important to be able to find your peace in spite of. And that prayer has really helped me, regardless of what's going on in the world, what's going on in my work life, my home life, relationships, that I go to God every day and I pray this prayer, sometimes several times a day, sometimes several times an hour, depending on the situation. The other thing is it gives you an opportunity, or for me it gave me an opportunity to assess the situation. One, I'm turning my will and my life over to my God. I'm saying, listen, I'm asking you for help. I'm asking for guidance. Help me. I'm asking for help, and I'm asking for serenity. Calm my heart, calm my mind. It's really easy to obsess over things that are outside of your control. And when you're able to find that peace and to know that God has got you, then you're able to have clarity and become creative and innovative and find solutions with God to bring you to a better outcome, to accept the things that I cannot change. There are things like death, for example, is not reversible. For those of us who believe in God and Jesus Christ, we believe if we follow him, we will see each other again. So it's not final, but it is a significant change. And to be able to accept things that we had hoped for and to find that we are left disappointed can be hurtful. But at the same time, I have found when I look at my history, how God has delivered me from situations that I had hoped for that were not good for me.
I,
And listen, okay, I'm not going to name names, but I'm just saying,
hmm
was not good for me. And gratefully, I was able to, move forward and accept those things, accept a, a layoff, accept a financial insecurity, not having the provision that you thought was going to come in. Yet, God is sustainable. He's always a provider, and yet here I am on the other side of it. So, it's really important to be able to acknowledge that and the courage to change the things I can. Uh, Sometimes I think that my lack of faith in certain situations, and I admit I hold up my hand, Kim, there have been times where I have been faithless. I didn't have as much faith as I'd hoped I would at the moment, but I would pray for courage, the courage to do the right thing, the next right thing. And when God would show up and provide me opportunity to walk through those doors, even though I was fearful, um, I was still able to be in action. And those actions demonstrated my love and my devotion to my higher power, to the God of my understanding, to carry me through to the next level. And I'm grateful for all of the experiences that I've had in my life, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent. They have shaped the woman that I am and the woman that I'm becoming. I think it's important to keep a network of positive people around you in your life. If you don't have any homegirls or homeboys that you can be your authentic self with, please
hmm
pray for it because, it's really important to have seasoned individuals that have navigated some tough things and have a relationship with God themselves so that they can intercede on your behalf and pray with you and be there to guide you, to tell you the truth about, how you're showing up and maybe some things that you really didn't want to look at, some blind spots.
So let me ask you something because I love how you are. It sounds like you've done a lot of individual work to get to a place of peace. Like you're talking about the Serenity Prayer, and you said not even just praying it daily, but sometimes praying it multiple, like hourly, multiple times a
Mm,
day.
mm.
How do you manage when you have a team that maybe doesn't have the same level of faith or have the same faith? Like, how do you deal with the how do you deal with the sky is falling person, the person who's always worried, who's always half glass empty? How do you deal with that person from a managerial standpoint? And
Yeah.
how do you still keep your peace?
Well, I mean, it's a decision, honestly, to show up with integrity, to treat people the way you would like to be treated, to understand that some people are still, struggling. Perhaps they're spiritually sick. Perhaps they're dealing with some personal, adversities and things, and they just don't have the skill set, resources, understanding, clarity, willingness, all kinds of things. And I think, ultimately for myself, I just pray. And I love the title, Pray Without Ceasing. I have to pray for how I show up in those situations because, one, I cannot control people and what they do and what they think. I have a limitation. I'm a mere human. I'm just a woman live in this existence. And I cannot and will not control other people and how they adapt or are not willing to adapt to certain situations. But I can maintain my level of positivity. I can demonstrate who God is in me. I can check my own attitude and ego. Ego is another acronym for edging God out. Am I edging God out in the situation, or am I allowing Him to enhance what I've got going on in my
Mm,
situation?
edging
So
God out.
come on, so I'm always
Wow.
inviting Him into the situation because I don't know how to navigate what you've got going on in your heart, but I know God does. So if
Mhm.
I'm really about praying for myself and making sure that I get completely healed and restored from whatever I've been through so that I can show up and do the right thing for the next person, I just pray that they find that themselves. But what we're talking about is how do we show up in the workplace? So being consistent, I think, is really important. I use a couple things like halt, like, am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired, right? There's certain things that you don't want to show up to meetings with. Did you eat this morning? Did you get enough sleep? Perhaps you might need to reschedule that consultation, or, is the staff meeting at a right time for you to really lead eloquently in that meeting? Are you able to give people your full attention when you meet with them? How we show up really does feed the energy and the synergy in the room and in our teams. And if we're not willing to look at ourselves, and if we have complete balance within ourselves, we can struggle and add to any level of dysfunction and or chaos that might be going on for that individual.
Okay, I love the halt because I'm like the Snickers commercial. Like I'm hangry. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely a person. I've learned to carry snacks. Like it's real. Like for me, my ideal
Mm-hmm.
meeting is at like 10 a.m. because I want to make sure I've had breakfast, I've had my hot chocolate, I am mentally ready to engage with people. And so, like, I take snacks with me because otherwise, like, if you ever see me in person, I get a bag with something in it. It's a mint,
Mm-hmm.
there's some
That's right.
apples. Like, I keep snacks because honestly, I love what you said. Is like making sure we keep ourselves balanced because I can
Mm-hmm.
absolutely be no good to anybody. Like I was in a meeting yesterday and it had been all day and it was coming around 3 o'clock and I could just feel like the energy leaving me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep it together. And I made sure I ate and I drank some water. And then I just shut up. Like there are times when you know that you're not at your best, just close your mouth. Like if you're not, if it's not for you to
Mm-hmm.
facilitate the discussion, be quiet. And that's where I was
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. I was like, you know what? I'm going to hush because I have nothing helpful to give in this moment because my energy had been depleted. So I love how you said like having balance. How do you encourage your team to have balance? Like, how do you prepare them and support them in having more balance
Sh-
in their lives?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So for myself, again, you can't give away what you don't already have. So it's important for me to make sure I have fun in my life, that I give myself space to be innovative and creative, that I'm saying to myself why it is that I'm grateful. And then, making sure that I'm taking active time off and vacations and allowing myself when I'm sick to be sick, to recover. And so those are the things that when when I'm building a team, I take a pulse of how it is that they're working, what their workflow looks like. Is this a healthy workflow? Do they feel so connected to the workspace that they're not giving themselves a mental break? What are some things that I could do to help them feel more comfortable taking the time they need to take for themselves? What additional support and or resource sources am I responsible for that I can implement that would take some of the stress and pressure off? Because there are things that are outside of our control in terms of institutions and how they're laid out. But as leaders in our departments and divisions and regions and such, we have a responsibility to show up for our people. But I think if you're not demonstrating good, healthy boundaries for yourself, it's really difficult to have thoughtful conversations with folks to help them understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Our bodies have to last us for as long as God would have us here. And I want to have good quality of life until He removes me from this earth to be with Him. And for us, and speaking specifically to African American women, we don't carry stress the same. So I would just encourage us to, from a physical standpoint, to also take care of our bodies because of heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes and all the intergenerational trauma that was passed down to us. And a lot of people can relate to that. But for myself, when I look at myself in the mirror, I know that I just can't handle it. And it's my responsibility to show up for myself. So when I confidently walk through that for myself, then I can encourage other people from an authentic place to walk through that process. Also, it doesn't mean that you blow off the job, but what are some things that we can do to support you so that you feel encouraged to take care of yourself? Because it's been proven that employees that feel validated by their supervisors and they feel supported and they have the things that they need to be successful and to continue to grow will stay longer. And if they leave, that's wonderful for them. That means that they have found something else. But I think it's really important to encourage growth wherever people are currently, and then help them be able to transition into the next level, whatever that is. And hopefully that also includes a healthy mindset around working. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick before you move on to Audrey is that, you talked about the having a moment of should I be talking? And I have another acronym for you, which is wait, why am I talking? And I'm going to tell y'all people that has saved me on so
Mm,
many occasions when I just say, wait, why am I talking? Am I talking because I have actually something to say in response that would be helpful to this conversation, helpful to this person? Or am I talking because, again, my ego, I have edged God out of the situation and I want to prove a point. I want to be right. I'm feeling fear and insecurity inside of me. Therefore, I want to devalue who you are and what you're bringing to the situation because I want to be propped up right now. So I think it's really important to be able in real time to give yourself a moment to pause, to acknowledge the space you're in, the feelings you might be feeling, and well, whether or not they're rooted in reality or fantasy, right? Um, I will tell you one thing for me, and we talked a little bit about this perimenopausal thing that's been going on.
mm-hmm,
Ooh,
mm-hmm,
let me tell you, my emotions are like all over the place.
mm.
And it's for a number of reasons, right? One, I'm getting older. My mom is 88. My brothers and I are all getting older. The seasons are changing, right? And then my kids are 19 and 22. And so they're preparing to launch. My youngest is away at Howard, and my oldest works full time. And they're getting going in different directions, and then my body is changing physically. My chemistry in my body is changing, and I don't always know what's happening in real time. And so when I'm sitting in a business meeting, or there's news that I don't always agree with, I have to give myself space to process from a lens that is different than how it was when I was in my 30s or 20s, right? So I'm more mature today, of course, but physically my body is shifting. If I don't get enough sleep the night before, I'm not happy. I'm not happy, joyous, and free. I need those 7, 8 hours now. I don't always get a full night's sleep anymore. And that's been a change for me. So just acknowledging like the physical space that I'm experiencing, giving myself the freedom to change my schedule accordingly, making sure that I'm showing up with the right kind of intentionality and preparedness to be there for myself and my team and my institution.
I love how you are so attuned to yourself. Like, I think if most leaders did that, we wouldn't see some of some of the antics, some of the, like, I've had people in meetings, like
Hmm.
I've seen some people really go off the rails, and not to, be dismissive of the need for meds, not at all. But there have been people where I'm like, I think you need to be assessed. Something is happening here. And so, to the extent that we are so dysregulated, I think, and then
Hmm.
encouraging it, like there is no, I don't hear a space for, like, you need to maybe go to therapy. Maybe you need to be checking in with yourself. So this idea of,
Hmm.
wait, why am I speaking? Why am
Hmm.
I talking? Like, to take
Hmm.
the moment to go, what is this about?
Hmm.
Is it relevant? Right. I remember one day I was journaling and I was writing a bunch of notes. And God said to me, literally, He said, it's okay for you to be wrong. And that, like, I sat with that and I was like, it's okay for me to be wrong. And I was kind of like, to me, it felt random. It wasn't like
Hmm.
studying anything about that. Right. I was like, okay. But God give you what you need when you need it and you don't know.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And as I sat there, it did help me reflect on, that's good. Because why do I always need to speak? Right? Is it because I think I have the right answer? Is it because I think I have a solution? Or is it simply sometimes where I want to share my experience? But is your experience relevant to what we're talking about right now? Right. And so I love that
Hmm.
idea of, yeah, maybe it's not time for you to speak because it's just not an appropriate time. And maybe it's not helpful. You know what I mean?
I
So I
I
really
do.
love that.
I do know what you mean. And I think also when you're engaging, when you're a leader in your company and when you're engaging your subordinates, right, your
Hmm.
employees, you have to remember that there is a power shift. You hold the power as the manager and as the leader. So you don't have to explain yourself as much as you think you do.
I love that.
There are the rules. This is what the expectation is. This is what I need you to do. Either they're going to do it or they're not going to do it. And your job is to document, counsel. You let them know, hey, this is what I need you to do. You haven't met this metrics, and this is how it's impacting you, and you go on. And I think it's important to not take things so personally because it's difficult. Again, this is why it's important, as you said, to self-regulate, because it's difficult not to take and this is what I refer to, people doing people stuff, okay? It's difficult not to take offense when people are just doing people stuff, especially when you haven't had a good night's sleep or you haven't eaten or you and your kid had an argument on the way to work or whatever it is, you know? And so when you're in a leadership position, it's really important to identify your role and why you're there and not forget, not allow your emotions to take you out of the context of what it is that you're providing your institution, which is you're there to reduce any risk, if that makes sense. So you want to try not to add to that. And how you show up is really important. And so I would have meetings with people, and sometimes they would go on and on for a while, and there were things that they said that I obviously knew was not true, right? But it's their right to say it, if they want to say it. Now, it doesn't mean that I, as a supervisor, I don't have the right to have boundaries. I absolutely have the right to have boundaries. I can redirect the conversation. And if the person is persistent with going, their own way and not following guidance and not respecting our time, I have the right to excuse them from the meeting. But at the end of the day, it's important for us as leaders not to harbor resentments. And I know that sounds like, well, how do you not harbor resentment when
I
somebody
was
just cussed you out?
I was about to
Or
say, like, how are,
let me help.
please
Let me
give us
help
your
with
wisdom,
that.
Dr. Miller, because
Let me
I'm
help
like,
with that.
how we doing that? And you like, I just seen you in the hallway.
Yeah, what are we doing here? Well, and again, this is why it's good to have, trusted friends where you can honestly show up as your authentic self. Just because someone is acting out does not mean that you as a human don't have your own experience. Of course you do. And you have the right to express yourself in a safe place that won't cause harm to the other person that, you know. But for me, the best way for me to continue to grow and to receive God's blessing in my life is to not carry anger around, not carry resentments. And resentments are basically unrealized expectations, and I'm angry because you aren't doing what I want you to do, and I'm disappointed. But with that being said, understanding that not everyone is equipped to be able to navigate this life like you, Dr. Audrey, and yes, I'm speaking that into existence.
And I receive it. Amen.
Come on. Not everybody has had the same upbringing or
Right.
opportunities to learn how to balance themselves. Not everyone has had an opportunity to feel safe or to be able to be
Mhm.
acknowledged. And some folks have acted out, and that's the way that they themselves have found themselves to get the results that they wanted. And so you're adjusting to that. But just realizing it's just people doing people stuff. I was a knucklehead once, twice, three times, and God still has restored me to sanity in spite of myself. And the same God that takes care of me is the same God that's going to take care of somebody else. It's not my responsibility to manage somebody else's emotional health and well-being. That's God's job. So it's a little bit easier to release it to God, to my higher power, because I recognize that my lane does not my lane has limitations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, if I could
No, I
just say
love
it
it.
like
I
that.
love it. Yeah.
My lane has limitations. God has no lanes. He can go anywhere he wants to. He's omnipotent. He's all knowing, all being. He's everywhere. And he knows us all and what we show up with. And so my point is just manage yourself and what you've been charged to manage, and then leave the resentments with God. And don't get it twisted now. I crawl up. I have a very good relationship with my God, and I get up in his lap and I'm like, look, Daddy, this is what they did. I'm mad. I'm mad at them. I'm hurt by them. How could they say this to me? How could they file
Yeah.
a grievance against me? Me. I'm
I
doing all the right things. How can they do it? But then at the same time, I trust you. I trust
yeah.
you. I trust you. I trust you. You've always been there for me. I know you've got me. You're going to protect me. You're going to walk me through this. Not everybody can be a leader. And it's a reason why they say it's lonely at the top. That's why you got to have a God in your life, because left to our own devices, right? We limit our own progression. And if God has placed you in certain places, and Dr. Audrey said this to me, then you're there for a reason. And until your assignment is completed, and I wasn't really happy to hear this either, you're going to be there. So you better make good use of your time.
Listen, you know what? That sounds like some wisdom. I love that I said that to you.
I know. She's all full of wisdom. Car ride, y'all. It's nothing like a car ride. And
Oh
she's on the
my,
phone and I'm on the phone and what happens in your car stays in your car. Those kinds of
listen.
conversations.
No, I listen, to whom much is given, much is required, right?
That's right.
The and I think that the other thing that I always that comes to me is, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And so
That's right.
it can feel it can feel maybe lonely at the top, but it also is to know, like what you said, God has placed you there for the time. And so he's the one that knows how to help guide you through the difficulties, through the difficult storms, if you will. And I love what you said about just being transparent of like, Lord, did you hear what they said about me? I don't, no one
Mm-hmm.
wants to be misunderstood. No one
Mm-hmm.
wants to have a grievance filed against them, especially like when you're doing your best and you're trying to show love
Come on.
and you're coming up against obstacle after obstacle. And here's the thing, sometimes we can think that if we come up against obstacle, God ain't in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true. Sometimes you're coming up against obstacles because God is in it, because you are
Mm-hmm.
his chosen child and you have been trusted with a test. And when you're in position, you're going to get strategies from the enemy to try to deter you, to try to cause fear, to try
Mm-hmm.
to get you to step down and to step back and to question
Oh, come on.
authority and to question role in God. And it's like, no, the Lord
Mm-hmm.
put me here. And so I
That's
think
right.
as we remember how we got here and stay humble before God, we can manage any transition. We can manage any difficulty. So I just love your transparency and authenticity to say, yes, I've been in executive leadership a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what has kept you anchored, what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Miller, Dr. Kim, is God has kept you anchored. No matter how high he's taking you,
Yes,
you're in
ma'am.
a C-suite position right now, and God has anchored you. So I think that that's beautiful. So that leads me to my next question. So as a leader, and I'm thinking about, over 25 years, but just your life in general, right? What would you say has been the most challenging transition you've experienced, and how did you handle that?
Honestly, I think that I'm going through a challenging uh, transition now, because it includes a career change. As I mentioned before, my daughters are in the process of launching. My body is changing. My family, we're all aging. Everything, the landscape is different. And I've never been here before. Every day is new anyway, but I've never been in this season before. And so it's a lot happening all at once. But a year and a half ago, so after I completed my doctorate back in 22, December of 22, I launched into another position in higher ed. And This is my second position in higher ed. I was with a private university before, and now I'm with a public university. And I'm learning how to assimilate in a new work culture, which is different than what I'm used to in a much larger institution, different kinds of restrictions and challenges, because it's all new. It feels like everything in my life right now is new. Additionally, I have a new team. I'm trying to understand like what the work culture and practices are, just how we get along with team dynamics, with leadership. And what I'm also figuring out in this season is that it's even though I have my knowledge base, my years of experience of things that I've gone through, I also have to remain humble and willing to learn and be taught different things. I'll tell you, like, as I said, I'm 51, and the way technology has really changed in my career has been impactful for me. Sometimes I show up and I have to learn different types of things. And I feel like I'm behind the curve. I'm behind the eight ball because like when we were in high school, well, I don't know about you, Dr. Audrey, but for myself, when I was in high school, freaking cell phones were like huge. They were ginormous and they had the big antenna. And was high school, and it doesn't feel like it's been that long since then, but it has.
It
It's been
has.
30 some odd years. And so technology has really exploded in the industry. The pandemic has changed how people worked, and we're all still recovering from that. Institutions are still recovering financially from changes in political landscape. Universities, especially, have been impacted with federal fundings and things like that. So there's all these things that are kind of happening, and you're having to learn it all at once. And in addition to that, I feel that I'm having to adjust and become more patient with myself. That I may not know as much as I thought I knew, and I need to allow myself the bandwidth to learn more and to be kind to myself. I have a lot to offer still in the workplace, right? I have a lot to offer in terms of my experience, my skills,
Absolutely.
um, but there's also a deficiency in other areas, and I have to be willing to allow myself to see those blind spots and to get the necessary resources and support to help me along. So, as I'm approaching the tail end of my career, I'm in the third chapter of my career, that I am preparing myself to the best of my ability. So I'm working smarter and not harder. And that goes back to the importance of balance. My mind and body needs to be in balance. And the more that I allow it to learn, that will make things a little bit easier for me so that I can incorporate different resources that will continue to help me be the professional that I am, to leverage things and my time so that I'm not stretching myself too thin is really important. So for those folks who are also struggling with technology, keep your chin up. It's gonna be okay. Uh, this institution that I just moved to also had just implemented a new enterprise system, and a lot of people, I will say, were very still resentful of that change. They went from having a system that they knew ha- like the back of their hand. It was more transparent, and not everything that people say and they sell, to institutions, all the bells and whistles really truly become those things. And so that's also been a bit of a struggle, is learning a new system in a new place with people who are resentful of the system, that don't know the system to the best of their ability either. And so again, it's showing up with the right kind of attitude. And every day I go in there, I pray, I'm like, God, help me, Jesus, help me, to align my mind so that I can continue to absorb as much as this body can absorb, and touch me, touch me, touch the hearts of others around me, that they will go out of their way to help me, that they will go out of their way to support me. And when I pray that prayer, and I have to say that I have a network of people that will call me, they'll text me, they'll say, "Hey, Kim, and these are my work colleagues. Is there anything that you need? Can I support you in any way?" And so I'm just so grateful that I can see how God is moving, even when I'm not as confident. Learning something new means that you have to lean in on God in a different way,
Hmm.
and that's a good thing. I mean, because I feel like to me, if everything remains the same and I become stagnant, then I don't stay in gratitude. I know how to do this. I've got the me do it attitude. When you're like 2 or 3, you're learning how to do it. You say, me do it. And the baby doesn't want the help from the parents anymore. They want to kind of do it on their own. And so I get the me do it. And then, I forget that God is in control and that I need him. So I think it's really important to make sure that I remain humble, that I allow myself to feel the feelings. I may feel insecure some days, and that's okay. Feeling a feeling is temporary. That doesn't mean it's rooted in my reality. It's just a moment in time where I'm having an experience, right? And I can feel fearful, I can feel insecure. But the next thing is what action am I taking so that I can feel more secure in my ability in what God is doing for me in my life? And so having that communication and that discernment brings us back to, the serenity prayer. And at the end, it says, and the wisdom to carry it out. How do I know what it is I'm supposed to do versus what I'm not supposed to do? And it's having the discernment of what God's will is in my life. And that also means that I have to quiet the noise. I have to pray. I
Yeah.
have to meditate. I have to go be quiet. When I drive to work, I don't always have music going on in the car. I use that time to just be quiet. And sometimes I just take the back roads and I'm out there with the cows and and the sheep and the goats because
Not
sometimes
with the
that
wildlife,
yeah, with the look,
the lives.
me and the animals be talking, y'all. We roll the windows down. I open up the sunroof. I let the sunlight of God's spirit shine on my face. And I allow myself to just have that time with me and God without something else running interference. And I think for us as leaders, especially when we're managing multiple things, that time might be the only time that we have throughout the day. So just giving yourself moments where you can replenish and feel connected. And I think also what's important for me is doing like gratitude lists helps a lot, because
Hmm.
sometimes you forget what God has done for you. You know what I mean? Like, I
Have a
have a
short
built-in
term.
forgetter. I don't know about you. I have a built-in forgetter, right? He does
We can
all
have a
this
short
stuff.
term memory, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
he'll do all these things for me, and then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, he did." And then as soon as something happens, I fall apart like he's never been there. So I have to remind myself, like, God woke me up this morning. I have full faculty of my mind, my body, my spirit is intact. I have healed from things that I thought I would never recover from. My children are doing well. They are happy. They're thriving. Um, and it's not as though. I'm always looking at things, from a glass half full. I have to remember that he has done so many things.
Can
Can I
we?
just share this one thing with you though,
Yes,
just
please
to
go
close
ahead.
this
Yeah.
out? I think as a leader, we forget that we also go through really traumatic experiences and we're having to navigate those traumatic experiences outside of work. And I think it's important to allow yourself the freedom to seek outside help and counseling to support as well. So it's weird to say this now, but about almost 5 years ago, my oldest was in high school, and she was dating a young man, and the relationship was toxic, and he attempted to murder her. He pulled out a knife one day and he stabbed her right above her clavicle. Um, and he was just inches away from her main carotid artery. She did suffer nerve damage and a collapsed lung. just prior to that, and that was in April of, it's so weird, of the 2021, it was during the pandemic. In February, I had been laid off from my job, and I was a leader at that job. And so it was just kind of like back to back things that were happening. And I was trying to, complete my doctorate and get my other child through high school. And it was just a lot going on. And Maggie, that was my oldest, when we went through that as a family, she had lost functionality of her right arm, and she could use her hand, but her outside of her arm was numb. So she didn't have any feeling and she couldn't lift her arm. And, the God that I serve had control of this entire situation from beginning to end, in spite of what it looked like. At the time, it looked like, oh my God, we're in the middle of a pandemic. The head of the household. I'm a single parent. I'm the breadwinner. This is financial insecurity. How am I going to pay the mortgage? Oh my God, now my kid has been harmed in this way. She's suffering emotionally and physically. Is she ever going to be able to use this arm again? And what I didn't know was that God took me out of my employment situation because He knew that I was going to have this other life event that was going to happen. And I needed to be there for her and to focus on her and to help her recover. And I also needed to have the bandwidth to support myself, to get the counseling that I needed, to make sure that my other daughter got the support she needed. And during that time, I also worked on my dissertation, and my dissertation changed. It had another topic, and then I changed it to the resilience of the Black woman thriving through storytelling. As a result of all of these series of unfortunate events that ended up being a change in my narrative in regards to how good God is and how good God will be if you continue to lean in. And, my pantries never ran dry. You know, um, I had, more than enough money in my bank account to pay all of my bills. My daughter, if I hadn't have gotten laid off from that employment job, I wouldn't have went on Medi-Cal and had to get other medical provisions and things like that from the state, and which afforded me the opportunity to have the medical surgery at Stanford. I was able to get a referral, and she was able to get a nerve replacement that they took out of the inside of her arm and they put it in the outer part of her arm, and that nerve grew, and now she's able to use that arm and do a handstand today. No
Wow.
copayment, no, no, all the physical therapy, all the drugs they had to give her, everything. I've not paid $1 for that at all.
Wow.
And had I had that job, I would, and I had Kaiser at the time. No, 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 no disrespect towards Kaiser, but I'm just saying, like, those co-payments add up. Um, and I don't know if the service would have been the same for her. And God had it all together. And then when we got on the other side of those things, He put me in a job, with people that, really cared about me and nurtured me and supported me as I was navigating through the tail end of all of this and having to go to court and, with my kid and making sure she hit her doctor's appointments. And I was able to complete my doctorate and still be in leadership and still do all the things. So I say all of that is we're human too. Just because you're in
Yeah.
an executive leadership position does not mean that you will not have harm or adversity or different things that may come your way where you're struggling with work-life balance yourself. But I think for me, what I was most grateful for is how God showed up and He connected all of the dots for me so that I could look back at the context and the history of
Hmm.
what happened and see how He was in the midst from the beginning all the way to the end and to this day, and how we are still recovering as a family. And that's what I draw from when I'm
Yeah.
going through things, is that this situation that I'm dealing with is not that situation. And if God can bring me through that situation, He can bring me through this situation, you know?
And let's pause there. Let's
Hmm.
pause there. Uh, like the whole your whole testimony that you just shared, it is shocking, it's miraculous, it's like you started off by saying, let me remember, right? And
Yeah.
when we're going through it, it doesn't make sense. When we're going through it, it's painful, it's scary. And you were able literally just now to back, you said this was 2022.
Yeah.
You just
That's
went
right.
back 4 years and showed God showed you the whole map of why you got laid off. And then he
Yes.
provided the provisions for the medical and protected you and your child. Like the word says that my children's children will be blessed.
That's right.
My children's children will. So your daughter
That's
was
right.
blessed in something that the enemy meant for evil. God still turned it around,
That's right.
healed her, blessed her. She got the best medical care,
Yes.
sustained you, and laid you off because you needed
Come
to be
on.
at home to take care of her. I mean, can we pause for a minute?
Yes, we can.
Like, I'm my mind is blown. There's so many times in the Bible, in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, but the Old Testament specifically, where God says, remember what I've done.
That's right. Come on.
Remember what I've done. Teach it to your children. Teach it to your children's children. Talk about it as you're driving, as you're on the roads, right? They didn't have cars back then, but as you're on the road, talk about it. And so just your testimony and your daughter's testimony of how faithful God has been.
That's right.
Like our last question was, what have you learned about God and yourself in transitions? And you just testified of like how faithful he is. And the
100%.
remembrance of, yeah, this situation may be bad, but it ain't that.
It's
You know
not
what I
that.
mean? It's not
Yes.
that.
It's
Like,
not that.
how encouraging is that on your lowest day to go, but it ain't that.
But it's not that. And you need to have reference points, I believe,
Yeah.
so that you can remember not just that he brought you through, but, you know, and I hate to say it this way, but pain
Mm.
sometimes is the touchstone to all progress. Sometimes you need to be able to
Wow.
experience a pain point in order for you to be propelled forward. And I don't believe that God would have allowed for me to go through that particular situation if he wasn't going to use it for my good, my daughter's good, for those around. When I share that story, I don't walk around with that label on my forehead, or neither does Maggie, that she experienced that. But
Hmm.
we're still healing from it. We will always
Yeah.
continue to heal from that.
Yeah.
Because the main thing is that we talked about resentments earlier. We had to forgive that individual because he was
Hmm.
a sick individual doing sick things, but he's still God's child, and God's grace is
Mm.
sufficient for all. And there's nothing he can do will undo what he's done. There's nothing we can do that will undo what we've done. But Jesus paid the price for us all. And so for me, I have to, as a mother, be grateful that my child is alive, that he restored her mind, her body. The surgeon that she was placed with was one of the best in the country. And she took such care of her. And when I just like, and people, Audrey, people carried me. They carried me. They literally spiritually carried me and would call and check on me. And I have a good friend, and one day she just let me lay my head in her lap, and she just let me cry. She just let me cry because I was so full. And when we're leaders in our jobs, sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to be human.
Yeah.
We feel like we have to show up as superheroes, that we have to demonstrate this posture that is so strong, especially as a Black woman. That's microaggression stereotype, but I won't go there. But for
Yeah.
myself, I saw how God allowed me to feel the experience of being in pain, and how he relieved that suffering by way of others' love and care for me that he demonstrated as a
Hmm.
physical that I needed to touch. And
Hmm.
and then we have just continued to move on, and we just continue to give grace. And I'll just say this one last thing in regards to that.
Hmm.
My cousin had flown out from Michigan, from Detroit, and you know, people who come from the Midwest, they want to go to the ocean, right? So we went to Santa Cruz, and we're like, let's do it. We're all out there. And it's this beautiful sunny day. It's just gorgeous. It was a picturesque California day. And Maggie was frolicking around and everything. And she says, Mom, look. And I looked over and this girl was doing a handstand. Hey, you can't tell me. You will never be able to tell me that God does not exist for me and that He has not shown up in my life over and over and over and over again. So, in spite of all the calamity and the world's challenges and the work challenges and all of that stuff, I'm sure your listeners have moments that they can go back and they can pinpoint and identify where God has completely transformed a situation that looked very dim and bleak at the beginning, but how He showed His light and restored their situation and brought them up a level spiritually, which allows them to continue to recover with their God, right? That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it, you know?
And, and just as you shared that during those moments, during that time, that God allowed others to carry you,
Yes,
you will carry others. He's going to allow you to carry others in different ways so that they would
I
know
received
that
that.
He is real and
Yes.
that they would know that even in the difficult times, even in the pain, that He will pour out His love to them through other
Mm.
people. And so I just encourage you, let God use you every place that you are, Kim,
Thank you. Thank you,
because He's going
sis.
to use you to carry out and just pour into other people and to
Thank you,
carry His
sis.
children and know that it's okay. Because I love what you
Mm.
said. There's so many people who don't believe. There's so many people who don't think God exists, but there's no way that you can see and experience
Mm.
the things that, like you've just described.
Mm.
Only God, only God.
Mm.
And I pray that people who haven't experienced God yet would have an only God moment, that they would know that
Mm-hmm.
He is real and
Yes,
that He
Lord.
would send who they need to just carry
Mm.
them through. Right. I talked on the pod last week. We talked about love and loving people that sometimes seem unlovable or
Mm-hmm.
undeserving, but that God uses vessels, us as individuals, to pour out His love, that they would see His love in the earth through others. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you, sis. I love
Mm-hmm.
today. I love what you shared. I'm encouraged by what you shared. And I know that those who are going to listen, who are listening now and those who will listen in the future are going to be just blessed by it. So I love you. Again, I
I love
thank you
you.
for joining us, Dr. Kim Miller. And we'll see y'all again next time.
I love you, Audrey. Thank
I
you so
love
much
you.
for this podcast. You're amazing. And again, I just want to elevate you. Prayer Without Ceasing is such a beautiful title,
Yeah.
and um, the only way we can really learn if God is there is if we seek Him. We
Yeah.
have to continuously seek, and He will continuously show Himself. You just got to be patient. Just be
Yeah.
patient. Just ask Him to show up in a way that you're not questioning, so that you're sure, and He will answer that prayer.
Yes. I love it. I love
I
it.
love you.
I love you. I love you. Oh my goodness. Next time, y'all.
Bye bye.